Namaste. Welcome to Nepal's Top 7 Debaters 2013 produced by today's Youth Asia. This is the semi-final round in the English category of grade 10, 11 and 12.
The topic for today's debate is Nepal government should ban the privatisation and exploitation of its natural resources.
Now I'd like to introduce our panel of judges for today's semi-final round. Our first judge is Mr. Santosh Shah. He is the president of today's Youth Asia.
Our second judge is Ms. Kripa Rana. She is the director of the Mindtree. In 2012, she led the Mindtree's one-month-long visual art symposium to upcycle the waste materials collected from the Everest region.
Our third judge is Ms. Ying. She is an entrepreneur in the sector of international tourism and hospitality. She comes from China, studied in Switzerland, works in Canada and travels around the world.
May I invite our first debater, Utsav Nirola, to speak for the motion. He is studying in grade 12 at Xavier International College.
Privatization means shifting all the shareholding properties from governmental sectors to a private sector by the means of buying all the shareholds possible. During this process, all the authorities that the government have will be shifted to a private government sector. That means they can run the private company as per their wish, and the government cannot impose any factors against it unless and until it does not conflict the law of the country. First thing, let us consider a scenario when a private company buys a river, starts a hydroelectricity project, and starts selling its own electricity. First thing is that they might provide good electricity sources with less number of load shadings and proper facilities than whatever it is right now. And my pros may even consider these facts. But one thing to be considered is, with this facility, they are earning thrice as much money. They might charge twice as much money than what our government is charging right now. That means people who come from a less economic background will not afford such electricity. That means that includes maximum of the Nepalese society right now. So privatization in those sectors caused again to the same consequences. Only rich people could afford it. Second thing to be considered here is private companies are not always secure. That means they're funded by their own resources and resources from what they get from around. If those companies or those personnels go bankrupt, that means those companies have a right chances to fall down. That means they are not reliable. The other thing is that private companies earn their money for themselves. They might pay taxes through it, but that's not enough. The money that our government could be earning and investing it on the development of other infrastructure, rich shareholders are getting the money. That means our country is dying on debt and people are getting poor day by day. Rich people are getting rich day by day. That means privatization does not always have its own effect. Even letting private companies secure or preserve natural resources, or let us consider a forest department, conservation of forest department. That means they need security systems for which they have to preserve the society. Now, our government will not allow them to build their own army and preserve those resources. They need armed police forces. For that, our government will not allow armed police force to be run by private companies. That is going to create conflict between two parties. That means conservation of natural resources will not even go efficiently in this case. And the other factor to be considered here in this topic is exploitation of natural resources. Every government should stop the exploitation of natural resources, and there is no doubt for that. By saying this much, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
You're having a very easygoing attitude today, and in the semi-final round, I think you can't afford to be easygoing with your presentation. You're very unclear with your startup, because I was trying to figure out what is it that actually you're trying to debate on. Like, nobody is against the private businesses here. We're discussing about whether the government should ban the exploitation of its natural resources. So you're totally off the topic there. Privatization of armed police force. Armed police force is our human resource. It's not our natural resource. I wish it was a natural resource. So let's see what happens. Today was definitely a very disappointing presentation from your side, and you've done better in the past.
Thank you.
I thought in the beginning, before you said your points are clearly structured, although it is probably a little bit off the topic, but the structure was good, was very clear.
Thank you.
I'd like to say you put your views very simply, which I'm pretty impressed. You did not mug it up or, it was very simply put forth, which is good, but it lacked confidence. I'm sure you've reached the semi, so you must be a good speaker, but you seemed a bit distracted today. And there were no proper data to support your argument. Like Santosh and Ying said, like how you were off the topic, but you need concrete data because you're in the semis, you're not just, these are not just the qualifiers, so good luck.
Thank you.
May I invite Urusha Silva to speak against the motion? She is studying in grade 12 at St. Xavier's College.
My opponent said that the government and the country as a whole will be in loss by the privatization and exploitation of the natural resources. But the reality is totally different. Rather, it improves the quality of life and the living standard of the people. Let me give you an example. Butwal Power Company is a private enterprise which has privatized the rivers like Adikhola and Jimbruk, and they supply electricity in 62 VDCs and 2 municipalities of western and midwestern region of Nepal, and they give electricity at a cheaper price, and it is one of the largest taxpayer of the country. For those who think that the privatization should be banned, are you trying to say that the government should extinguish the only hope of all those 36,000 customers and compel them to live in darkness and drudgery of life? Think about it. We all know how resourceful our country is and how it is naturally diverse, but due to lack of proper entrepreneurship and monitoring, political instability, Nepalese government has not been able to reach out to the nook and corner of the country and make maximum use of the natural resources. Did you know that more than half of the 36 public enterprises owned by the government are operating under heavy loss nowadays? This is because they were the breeding ground of corruption, financial disaster, and inefficiency. In this scenario, if the exploitation and privatization of the natural resources is banned, then the situation of Nepal will turn into something like of having a cow but not being able to extract milk from it. The best example of resource management in Nepal has proved to be the system of community forest. I personally had conversation with some of the users of the community forest of Godavari. Harimaya, a livestock farmer, said few things to me. This is exactly what she said. Forest conservation is a spiritual duty to me. After the privatization of the forest, we have had easy access to firewood and grass, and that's what has made our life easier. As you can see, a sense of ownership is being reflected here, which will help the citizens to value the natural resources of the country. Let's take the example of our neighboring country, China. More than half of the economic activity in China is in the private sectors, and this is the major engine of economic development in this politically communist country. Therefore, privatization and exploitation of natural resources is a win-win strategy for the government as well as for the citizens, so it should not be banned. Thank you.
Thank you, Urusha. The debate is very, very powerful. You show a lot of enthusiastics, and from your body gesture, from your tone of your voice, we can see you believe what you are debating on. Thank you. And I really like you are very clear on the point that you're debating. And you use a lot of good examples. It shows that you have done your research, very good data support of your argument. You also use some very good metaphor, like the cow, have the cow but not exactly extract the milk. It was very funny as well. You also very skillfully incorporate the conversation with the local community and use their voice to support your own point, which is very, very powerful. You also expanded your point to the neighboring country, to China, to support your point. I find it's very, very convincing as well.
Thank you. I should really commend you on your confidence. It is what you need, in order to reach the other round or the other level. You have it in you. And I should say it was very well structured. The debate was really well structured and well-informed argument. So you've done your study and you know what you want to, what you support for, what you're speaking for. And I think that's what will help you go further and help you go further to the next round.
Urusha, you are much better today than your previous debate. So congratulations for that. You started with counter-argument, which is a very good thing to do if you're a second debater. You're confident, loud and clear, as judges have already said. good data, well placed systematically, and that's a very good part of utilizing the research and study that you have done to prepare your debate. Using story in a debate could be a very odd mix, and I think it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I was surprised how well you did that today.
Thank you.
Because normally in a speech you can mention a story or an incident, but in a debate I rarely see that, and to place it the way you placed it, I think that's where you is today.
Thank you. Our next debater is Anushka Pant, who will speak for the motion. She studies in grade 10 at Sri Satya Sai Siksha Sadan.
When a person is in a stage of dying due to heart problem, if you start preparing for his grave when you could have saved his life, it is not a right thing to do. Ministry of Industry has mentioned that Nepal, which is known to have the potential of 83,000 megawatt hydropower, has been able to produce only 700 megawatt in the period of 100 years. And it is all due to the main villains who have kept us all in dark, the hydropower license brokers. Similarly, Ministry of Industry has mentioned that in the period of 15 years, 25.4% of the forest cover has been lost. Now, we have only 24.5% left. It is all due to illegal use of deforestation by individuals and those groups who are privatized. Similarly, in the Chure range of Nepal, 130 stone crossing industries are in operation, which exports more than 800,000 tons of stones and sand daily to India illegally. All these activities have posed a threat of turning Tarai, the granary of Nepal, into a desert. Now imagine how much hazardous would it be for us if we would go on legalizing privatization? Do you still support we should not ban privatization of resources? Private companies are all profit-oriented. My examples have clearly justified that in the motive of generating profit, they are all over-exploiting our resources. Nepal is a country, the base of whose advertisement to the world are its natural resources. So if we do not protect it, we will be lost. Like the dodo bird, which got extinct during 1681, the 69 endangered species of Nepal will have to face the same fate, and it will have an effect on tourism, an immense sector which has a huge potential in our country. Now just imagine, if you start comparing Nepal with China, then it is not going to work, because it is very unlikely that the fragile governments of Nepal cannot have control over the privatized sectors. So privatization is not an option at the present context. But if you still argue that we should privatize the natural resources and exploit it, then I should say it is not a right thing to do. Thank you.
Anushka, I must say you're very young, but the level of confidence you have is probably of a person who already has a master's degree, and that too in that particular field. It was a very well studied and researched debate. It had a lot of examples, and especially from Nepal, since we're talking about what the government of Nepal should and should not do. It had good reasoning and grounding of facts, so I think that was really good. Thank you.
Kripa has mentioned a very good point. I just have one thing that I would like to praise you, is that you use the tone of your voice and your body language to send a message to influence the audience. I think it worked.
Anushka, this is what I call a perfect debating.
Thank you, sir.
It's a difficult topic, and you did a great justice to this particular one. I salute to you for your debate today. It's very strong, and it's a very bold presentation. You have amazing research, very well placed, and you made very good logics. And as Judge Ying said, that you'll end up convincing a lot of your viewers today. At the same time, I would like to say that today you're clear and confident. There's no doubt about it. But today, for the first time, I'm seeing you nervous inside. Is that true?
I don't know.
You don't know. And you dealt with it very, very well. You didn't let it. So that's a very good thing of a debater.
Thank you, sir.
One of our participants, Nancy Bogati of grade 12 from Buranilkanta School, couldn't join us today because of some medical issues.
We now begin with the rebuttal round.
Nepal's government is very unstable right now. That means if it has to privatize all these natural resources, that means it has to shift its authority to that and manage a new sector in the form of law that would govern these private companies. So in order to do that, it's going to take a hell of a lot of time for our countries. And it's the instability for the countries like ours. That means the corruption which is going on right now in our government sector is well to carry out in the private sectors. So I still do believe that privatization and exploitation of natural resources should be banned. Thank you.
My opponent said that the privatization of natural resources will have negative impact on tourism development. I guarantee you that if there were not privatization and exploitation of natural resources, then the tourism development of our country would be at risk right now. The main tourism attractions, mountain climbing, bungee jumping, paragliding, kayaking, canoe riding, rafting, are all operated by the private sectors of our country right now. Moreover, the revolutions in agriculture in Nepal right now, whether that be bee farming, herbal production, scientific research by easy mode, all have been enhanced and promoted due to the privatization of natural resources in our country. Let us compare the efficiency of two enterprises, a public and a private enterprise, to show how important privatization is for Nepal. Jaunapur cigarette factory is a public enterprise which has been running on the loss since 2 decades now, whereas Surya Tobacco is a private enterprise and it is the largest taxpayer of the country and it gives employment to more than 900 staffs in this country. Our country, where the unemployment rate is more than 47% according to the census of 2001, privatization of natural resources can provide massive employment to the people. Therefore, privatization and exploitation of natural resources should not be banned. Thank you.
Talking against the topic itself, my opponent has been supporting exploitation, which is in itself a negative term. Would you permit labor exploitation? Then why resource exploitation? I have already mentioned that when there is no balance of power in our country, privatization would create more exploitation of the natural resources. Let me tell you one thing, that in our life, what is the main goal? We want to achieve happiness. We cannot compare GDP with gross national happiness, which means peace and harmony with the nature. We can have happiness when we have peace and harmony with the nature. But if we start privatizing and exploitation of resources, we will not achieve happiness. So I justify that. I think I've justified that we should not promote privatization of natural resources. Thank you.
I request all the debaters to come up on stage. I'd like to request the judges for their decision.
Utsav, Anushka and Urusha, very good debating today. It's a very difficult topic that we have given. And normally in semi-final the topics are difficult because it becomes very difficult to select 2 out of 4. Nancy couldn't join us today because of her family health issues. But today's decision is very clear. It's very obvious that Utsav will have to let you go from here. And it's not that you're not a good debater. You've debated well in the past. I don't know what was the problem today. So prepare well and carry on debating. And Anushka and Urusha, congratulations. We'll be seeing you in the finals. Prepare well. You both are tough debaters, so I'm looking forward to the finals. Congratulations.
Congratulations. The selected debaters will be going to the final round.
Our viewers can send us debate topics for our upcoming episodes.
In today's category, Anushka Pant of grade 10 from Sri Satya Sai Siksha Sadan has received the maximum Facebook likes. Congratulations, Anushka. You can vote for your favorite debater by liking their photo in our Facebook page.
If you are a student studying in between grade 7 and bachelor's level, You can apply for Nepal's Top 7 Debaters 2014. The application submissions are now open.
You can call the TYA office at 4257-250 or send us an email at youthtya@gmail.com. We will be back next week. Namaste.